All right, we're about to get into one of those decisions that is, well, literally built into the foundation of your home. Seriously, it's a choice that's going to affect how you feel every single day, what your bills look like, and even where you can put your sofa for the next few decades. And I'm not talking about picking paint colors or deciding on a kitchen layout. Nope. We're talking about something way more fundamental. That's right, it's all about how you heat your home. And believe me, this decision has massive ripple effects, touching everything from your monthly budget to the comfort you feel just walking around in socks. To put a number on it, getting this right could save you over £21,000 over the 50-year lifespan of a modern heating system. The wrong choice? Well, that's a mistake that just keeps costing you year after year. So, let's finally settle the big debate. Welcome to Underfloor Heating Hub. Today we're covering old-school traditional radiators versus that sleek modern underfloor heating. So let's dive right in. We're going to break down the science, the costs, and the day-to-day reality to figure out which one really makes the most sense. First things first. Let's get into how these things actually work, because they use completely different physics to heat a room, and that in turn completely changes how it feels to be in that space. You know, it's kind of funny, but radiators don't really radiate a whole lot of heat. They mostly work through something called convection. They heat up the air right next to them, that hot air rises to the ceiling, then it cools and sinks back down, creating this constant cycle of air currents. And that's why you get those annoying drafts and cold spots. But underfloor heating, totally different game. It uses radiant heat, which warms up the entire floor, and that floor then gently warms you and everything else in the room directly. So to put it simply, with radiators, you get convection, which leads to those classic hot and cold patches all over the room. With underfloor heating, you get this beautiful, consistent radiant warmth, wall to wall. It's basically the difference between having hot air blasted at you versus being wrapped in a gentle, even heat. Okay, now let's talk about the big one, the money. How do these systems stack up when you look at the upfront costs to get them installed versus what they're going to cost you to run, month after month for years to come? But before, if you found this helpful, give it a like and subscribe for more underfloor heating tips. Got questions? Drop them in the comments. I love hearing from you. And for detailed guides, product reviews, and everything underfloor heating, visit underfloorheating.info. Alright, when you look at the initial installation cost, radiators are usually your most budget-friendly option. No surprise there. Electric underfloor heating kind of sits in the middle, but a wet, water-based underfloor system, that's definitely the biggest investment right out of the gate, especially if you're trying to retrofit it into a house that's already built. But that initial price tag is only half the story. As soon as you look at the actual running cost per hour, the whole picture just flips. A wet underfloor system is nearly half the price to run compared to an electric one. And now let's zoom out and look at the annual costs, because this is where it gets really interesting. A standard mains gas boiler hooked up to radiators is going to run you just over £1,900 a year. But if you pair a wet underfloor system with a modern heat pump, that yearly bill plummets to around £1,245. That is a saving of more than 35% every single year. So what is the magic here? Why is underfloor heating so much more efficient, especially when you pair it with a heat pump? Well, it all comes down to a really simple concept in physics. The key metric you need to know is something called the coefficient of performance, or COP. Honestly, you can just think of it as an efficiency score for a heat pump. It tells you exactly how many units of heat you get out for every single unit of electricity you put in. And this right here is why the choice is so critical. If you connect that heat pump to standard radiators, you're going to get a COP of about 2.5 to 3. Not bad, but look what happens when you connect that same heat pump to underfloor heating. The COP shoots up to as high as 4.5. We're talking a 40–45% boost in efficiency, and it's all because underfloor heating uses much cooler water, which just so happens to be the sweet spot where a heat pump runs at its absolute best. Now, this crazy efficiency isn't just about saving you money, it's also a massive deal for the environment. A major study from a top tech institute found something really surprising. When you look at the total climate impact of a heating system, the materials it's made from, they barely matter. What really matters is the energy it uses day in and day out. In fact, check this out. Over the entire life of a heating system, about 95% of its total carbon footprint comes from its daily energy use. The materials in the manufacturing process, that's just a tiny little sliver. This makes it crystal clear. Long-term efficiency is the only thing that truly matters for sustainability. Okay, so let's move beyond the numbers and the science for a minute. What about the practical day-to-day differences? How do these systems actually feel to live with? Well, for underfloor heating, the lifestyle perks are pretty amazing. You get that perfectly even, luxurious warmth under your feet. All of your wall space is suddenly free, giving you total design freedom to put furniture wherever you want. It's completely silent, and since it doesn't create those air currents, it's way better for people with allergies because it doesn't kick up a bunch of dust. But of course, radiators have their own set of advantages. They heat up a room incredibly fast, which is awesome if you aren't home all day and just want a quick blast of heat. That initial cost is lower, and they're so much easier to install in an existing home without tearing up the floors. Plus, let's be honest, there are endless styles to choose from these days. So with all of that on the table, how in the world do you actually make the final call? Well, it really just comes down to what matters most for your specific project. Here's a pretty simple way to think about it. If your absolute top priority is the lowest possible upfront cost, or you're just doing a quick and simple renovation, radiators are probably your best bet. But if you are chasing maximum long-term energy efficiency and savings, or you're designing a brand new home from scratch, underfloor heating is the clear winner. You see, at the end of the day, there's no single best answer that fits everyone. The right choice really depends on your project, your budget, and what you're trying to achieve in the long run. It's all about finding the perfect fit for your home and for you. And that really just leaves us with one final question to think about. Your home is going to be around for a long time. A heating system can last for 50 years. So as we move into a future that's going to rely more and more on things like heat pumps and super high efficiency, you just have to ask yourself, which of these systems is truly ready for what comes next?